Hi, this is Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin. I'm here in Perry County at the home of the Perry Commodores. Inside this building behind me are a whole lot of public school teachers working hard, teaching young people the future of Kentucky, and wondering whether in fact Kentucky will deliver on the promise to them that was made as it relates to their pensions. This is the question of the day. It's something that I've been addressing in Facebook Live. It's something that has been discussed far and wide. It's important to understand that there are those who really aren't looking for a solution, those in the media that are intentionally creating division, spreading untruths and half-truths, cutting and clipping things that I've said to imply that I've said other things. At the end of this video, you're going to see two questions that were specifically asked by teachers. It would seem, I don't know that they were teachers, but they were about teachers from my Facebook Live interview the other night. I want you to watch the questions and the answers in their entirety. Don't rely on some hack in the media to give you a part of an answer to a question and imply that was the entire answer. I want you to understand something. Our pension system is in crisis, including that for our teachers. I am the first governor that we have had in the lifetime of those of you watching this that have taken this seriously, that is actually addressing a situation that all of us know is a big problem. I'm doing this because it is the right thing to do, morally and legally. My grandmother, who was widowed when my mother and her sister were young teenagers, was a public school teacher. Her only income came from being a public school teacher. She was born in 1909 and got both an undergraduate and graduate level degree in education at a time when most women didn't even go to college. When she retired, the only income she had was her public teacher pension system. This is very personal to me. My father was a public school teacher. Two of my siblings were public school teachers. The reality is I see a lot of commentary to the fact that I don't even perhaps know a public school teacher or am not sensitive to what is involved. I am very sensitive to what is involved. This is why I am fighting with everything in my ability to save the pension system. Take a look at these two videos at the end of this comment and decide for yourself whether I'm fighting for you or against you. I need you to be on board. If you are a teacher who wants your pension to be preserved, I'm asking you, contact your legislators. You can reach them at the number below. You can reach them at the email address that is listed on this screen. Contact your legislators and ask them to save the pension system. We want those that are retired, those that are working, and those yet to come to be able to bank on the promise from the state of Kentucky, from the Commonwealth itself, to be able to ensure that we deliver what people expect. We are Kentucky. What about the teacher use them or lose them sick day issue? This isn't just for teachers, but it's probably more topical with teachers than it is for some of our other employees. There's a policy, use them or lose them, kind of doesn't exist right now. People are allowed to accrue days, save them up. I don't know, I think by state law it's 10 that people get per year, 10 sick days, and certain local jurisdictions and school boards have given people even extra days. So depending on where you teach, you may get 11 or 12 or I don't know how many. But usually 10 to 12 is about the number that most people get. The question at stake is, should we allow people who have not been sick or who can work through that sickness or who choose not to take a sick day, which incidentally, while I'm not a doctor, I advise to the extent possible, as the father of 9 kids who go to school, being a sick teacher, take the day off. It might be advisable. I know it's hard, and some people genuinely don't want to leave their kids without somebody. It's maybe hard to find a substitute teacher. But the fact of the matter is there's reasons why those sick days exist. Some people, though, have accrued an amazing number of them. Sometimes 3 digits worth of them, 100 or even 200 of them over a period of time, maybe even more. There is a policy now that allows people to use the value of those days and apply it toward their final year's salary. They take those upon retirement, they're calculated and added to their final year salary. That final year salary is something that's able to be included in a high 3, for example. So the average of your last 3 and highest 3 years can then, in fact, be inflated, perhaps, or some would argue, artificially. Is that appropriate? Are those days there to spike a pension, to increase artificially a salary, or are they there for covering people that are sick? These are questions that are being had.
We need to provide for those who take care of our kids, period. So if you are a teacher, you should have the ability, if you're sick, to be home sick. And I will say this, again, this is going to be a decision made by the legislature, but from conversations I'm having with Speaker Hoover, President Stivers, and their various leadership, especially those addressing this pension problem, we do not have any intention of taking the value of things that are currently accrued away from people. We may change policies on a going forward basis, but the idea of going back in time and saying, hey, you should have used them, you should have retired, we're not going to play that game. I want to make something very clear. Nothing that we do is going to come with an emergency clause. Nothing. So you are not going to be forced, if you're on the cusp of retirement or 1 or 2 or 3 months or years away, you're not going to be forced to make a quick knee-jerk response. We are going to protect the value of what you've earned to this point to the absolute extent of our ability, and I think that ability is high. We're also going to protect, for those of you that are close to retirement, some of you have already made decisions. You've perhaps bought a home in another place, or maybe you have children that have moved to be near you, with a certain expectation that there is going to be a retirement sometime in the next 2, 3, 4 years for you, whatever the case might be. If in fact this is the case for you, you should not be alarmed that suddenly a wall is going to be erected and you're going to be trapped inside and have no choice. There will be no emergency clause. There will be no quick, you better make a decision now or you're going to lose certain value. We are going to preserve the value of what you've earned for those who've earned it. The real crux of what we're wrestling with is how do we make changes that are fair to all concerned and affordable so that the system can be maintained going forward. And so the value of the promise that has been made is actually worth something. That's what we're going to be wrestling with as we talk about this in response to this latest PFM report. Over 40% of current teachers can retire this very today. How does that help the pension system if everyone chooses to leave? It wouldn't help the pension system, but it doesn't frankly hurt the pension system necessarily either. It really doesn't. The problem is the problem still exists. It was interesting to me. I saw recently that there have been these kind of posts put out there essentially threatening that all these people could retire. 13,400 teachers could retire today if they were so inclined. I don't assume that this is intended to be a threat to people, but frankly, if a teacher thinks so little of their responsibility and their obligation to their students and the families that they're responsible to, that they would literally walk out on their classroom in their own self-interest, that's an unfortunate decision that I would certainly hope that a teacher would not make. Our job, as I've said already, is to create an environment where that's not even a temptation. There's really no advantage to doing that. I could tell you right now, we're not going to pass anything that will cause a person to wish they had retired earlier as a result of it. We're just not going to do it. Why cut off our nose to spite our face? But I will say this, if you happen to be a teacher who would walk out on your classroom in order to serve what's in your own personal best interest at the expense of your children, you probably should retire. I'm being completely serious. If that's truly where you are at this stage in your career, I wouldn't suggest that being in the classroom is probably the best use of your time. And yet I know for a fact that almost all of you teachers that are watching this don't think that way. Certainly thinking about even my own children's teachers, I'm grateful to those teachers for whom this is a true calling and a true passion. Thank you for that. There's literally no amount of money we could pay you to keep up with all of our kids day in and day out, and I personally thank you for that. And I know this isn't a temptation for you. But I want to make sure that there's no reason for it to be for anyone based on the decisions that we make.